All right, this being the appointed time and place and seeing a quorum present, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you'd all please rise and join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jamie, would you please take the roll?
Mike Higgins.
Here.
Lori Holland. Here. Diana Johnson. Here. Tina Johnson.
Here.
David Schrader.
Here.
Dave Smith.
Here.
Doug Will. Craig Wortman.
Here.
Tony Arnett.
Next, we have a preview of the agenda. Any items that we need to rearrange or remove? No? All right. Then this brings us to public input. This is one of 2 times in the agenda where members of the public may address the board. Just actively wait to be recognized, give your name and address, and keep your remarks brief. And I'll start with here in the room. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board at this time? Seeing none. Okay. Anyone online?
I do not see anyone online.
All right. Then we will move on to announcements and recognition / communication. And I'm going to start with our high school student board representative. Andrew, if you please introduce yourself and tell us what's going on.
Hello, school board. I'm Drew Scheid. I would like to thank you guys for having me here to talk a bit about our school and the things that are going on. So this past week was obviously a big one for our school with homecoming week. It was a huge success. We held a bunch of activities and events. The theme this year was superheroes. The freshmen were the X-Men, sophomores were Guardians of the Galaxy, juniors were the DC superheroes, and the seniors were the Avengers. So the week started off with powder puff football, which resulted in the seniors claiming the victory. There was float building throughout the week, dress-up days, including Decades Day, Country versus Country Club Day, and Tacky Tourist Day. Hallway decorating in the morning of Monday. Pep rally, which is emceed by yours truly and Lily Garbleman, where we welcomed Dr. Eric Grimm, our distinguished alumni, and played games like heads or tails, hula hoop relay, jumping bag race, and tug of war. We had the parade, which hosted hundreds of attendees with floats from sports, float decorating, and the homecoming court. With our homecoming queen, Emily Ryan, and homecoming king, Ben Gifford. And then the dance, where an estimated 700 students came to the dance this past Saturday from 8 to 11, and they all had a great time. I would like to give a shout out to the student council advisors and leadership. Mrs. Fell and Mrs. Gibbons were on top of everything this week. They did amazing, and our president, Lily Garbleman, led us through this week. Great, and all the leadership really showed up. I'd also like to give a shout out to the custodial staff, because when a bunch of high schoolers are throwing things all over their school, they're the ones that have to pick it up. Looking toward the future, we're looking at Fall Fest, Call an Elf, Dude Be Nice Week, and Teacher Appreciation Week. And that is all I have. Thank you, guys.
It's a great job. Thank you, Drew. All right. Superintendent, do we have other items under announcements and communications?
I do. I have a big thank you to put out there to Moss Brothers Construction. They recently donated $1,000 towards Skills USA. We have a check already, and I greatly appreciate them and any business who would donate something like that to our programming. So I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Just pass this around to you. Nothing else? All right. Then we will move on to strategic discussion. And our first up is an update from Endeavor Charter High School. Yours, please.
Hi, everybody. I think everybody behind me knows me, so I apologize, but I'm probably going to talk like this. I have a couple of things that I'm passing out to you. First is our promotional brochure, and then I'll come back around with my business card. I'm here tonight because we have been in existence. We are in our 9th year. And in that time, I think this entire school board has turned over. So I felt like it might be a good opportunity for a little bit of introduction, a little bit of explanation. And then I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions either right now, or you do have my business card, so you'll be able to email me questions if you would like. And I'm going to try not to die on that cord in front of you. That would be very embarrassing. So I'll start out. My name is Judy Miller, and I am the lead teacher in Endeavor. We are a teacher-led school. We are the second high school in the Watertown Unified School District. We are co-located within Watertown High School. So many people don't realize that we are our own separate high school. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity today to hear a little bit about what we do, how we operate, and give you a chance to ask some questions. So as I said, my name is Judy Miller, and I am the lead teacher. I was on the original design team for our school. So I have been on board since we dreamed this up 10 years ago. And I currently take on not only the role as lead teacher, but also the role as language arts content specialist, and I'm an advisor. The rest of my team, we have a part-time staff member, Scott Meyer, who is the math content specialist that works with us half the day. Rob Harms is our science content specialist. He's also an advisor. He also teaches one section of biology in the high school. And then the other full-time coworker that I have is Beth Oswald, and she is the social studies content specialist, and she is also an advisor. We are currently a school of 43 students in grades 9 through 12. We are a choice school, so all of the students that are in our school have chosen to come to our school. They choose to come to our school for a lot of different reasons. Some are looking for a small school environment. Some students want to do our learning model. Some students are just looking for something different. Maybe they haven't had success in other environments and they'd like to try something different. But like I said, we are 43 students this year in grades 9 through 12. We have all ability levels. We have all interest areas. So some charter schools across the state focus on a particular area. So if you were to go to Kettle Moraine, they have a health science charter school. They have a global business charter school. They have a arts charter school. Endeavor is for anyone and everything. So we do not have a particular theme or focus that we follow. We are open to students with any interests, and like I said, all ability levels. So we have students that would be considered at risk. We also have students that would be considered accelerated, and everyone in between as far as ability levels. As I said, we opened in 2013. Endeavor was the brainchild of Dave Vitale and Bob Logan, and they approached a group of us to try to see if we could get this off the ground. And lo and behold, not only did we get it off the ground, but we have maintained an enrollment of between 40 and 60 students every year, and this is our 9th year. So like I said, we are co-located. We're right on the other side of the gym in the high school. We are the second high school in the Watertown Unified School District, with the third high school being the eCampus High School charter. Our delivery model, so our instructional model, is personalized, which means every student has a personalized learning plan. It is also project-based learning. Project-based learning is different than doing projects. Project-based learning is using a driving question and from the answer to that driving question, learning the skills and knowledge that you need to meet state standards. So our students are still meeting the same state standards that they would if they went to any other high school in the state of Wisconsin. The way they approach it is different. It's student directed and student led. They make all their own decisions about what they study in the order that they study it. They create all their own assignments, they create their own projects. And the role of teacher is different because the role of teacher is as coach and as advisor and as experts in our content areas, but then we are also generalists. So when people in the community ask me what I teach, I say I teach what needs to be taught. And so a student sits down next to me and they have a need and we work through that need and we figure it out together. We also have an emphasis on 21st century skills as part of our delivery model. And so we do direct instruction, cooperative grouping, and we spend time every day and every week with specific 21st century skill focuses in mind. We also focus on a community of student ownership. So all of our students are either mentors or they are apprentices in our space. Every student has leadership opportunities. Students are given voice and choice to take ownership of their learning, but they're also given voice and choice to take ownership of our school. So every time we do something new, we get together, we do feedback, we create plans for the future, how we want to do things differently next time. And because we are a small school, we are nimble enough that we can make changes for the students in this space as we need to make those changes. The brochure you have in front of you is one example of student leadership. This is completely designed by students and written by students to show the kinds of things that they think people in the community would want to know about their school. We use local printers, we use local graphic designers to help get this from idea to your hands of what you have in front of you. It does list our mission and our values on the first inside page. So you can see the kinds of things that we are emphasizing and the kinds of things that we work on with students on a regular basis. So I have given you my business card so that you can email me to A, ask questions, or B, schedule a visit if you would like to come in and see how we do things differently. We have student ambassadors who host guests and who host visitors. We've hosted teachers from all over the state from different charter schools. So we do have student ambassadors that are used to working with adults to teach them how we do things. That's the only reason you need an appointment, because I need to make sure that there'll be a student ready for you when you come in. Are there any questions that I can answer for you right now?
Board members, questions?
Go ahead.
Tina?
Did you teach in more of the traditional high school prior to this?
I did. You know what? That was in my notes. I think I jumped right over that. I taught in Watertown High School for 16 years as an English teacher and a reading teacher. And one of the reasons that I switched models was because I was looking for the opportunity to be more creative and more nimble in my instruction. Not that I don't absolutely love working with 9 or 10 other high school English teachers, but consensus building can sometimes be a long process, and sometimes it feels daunting. And so I wanted to be able to offer something different to students where we could customize their instruction and customize what they were interested in and find maximum relevancy for them. You're welcome. Did I miss anything?
I had no idea you were doing this, so it's a good job.
Hi, nice to see you. Go ahead, David.
So at a high level, what kind of, for the school, for the organization, what kind of goals have you had in the last year or so, and how are you doing on those goals?
Are you talking performance measures? Are you talking?
What are you as an organization, what are you doing to make yourself a better school? What kind of objectives do you have and goals, and how are you doing at that? right
So
now?
for academic performance measures, we use performance measures that are not the same as like a school report card because our population is so small. So with the state of Wisconsin, we have alternative performance measures that we have to report on. Those are in college and career readiness, in reading, in math, in our learning model, which in creating projects and participating in projects. And we are consistently setting our goals to be the highest they could possibly be. So we have goals of 95 to 100% of students getting a full credit of English in Endeavor every year. And we do not meet that goal every year. But we don't believe in lowering that goal just so we can meet it. We're really trying to make it so that every student succeeds at the highest level that they can every year. Some of our more affective goals are things like making sure that every student has a role in our school, no matter what their ability, no matter what their skills. And we do not rank and sort our students. So that means that we do recognize honor roll, but we don't have any sort of ability grouping. We don't have any sort of ranking and sorting, anything that would judge a student over another student. Because we believe that all students have strengths and values to bring to our community. And the way that we encourage that is by making sure that every student's strengths are celebrated. So one of our goals is to make sure that every student has a community contribution to our community and that every student has leadership opportunities that are important to them. Does that do it for you? Okay. Besides 21st century skills, every student has to participate. Every student in our learning community does everything. So we all do community service. We all do communication. We all do problem solving. We all do, so our 21st century skills, we work on every single day. So that's another goal. Every student will grow in their 21st century skills.
Dr. Mahalis?
Yeah, and so to add to that, annually, the school submits an authorizes report that highlights the progress towards the goals that Judy mentioned. But they also, every public charter school has a school report card, and Endeavor's no different, and they have consistently exceeded state expectations on the school report card, which I think is a good thing. It's not something you get done for, but it's certainly a byproduct of, again, the effort put forth by the staff there and the kids and families. I'd just add, at the end of this year, a couple things I'd like to add if I could. At the end of this year, the 5-year charter is up, so a resolution will come in front of the board sometime in February or so to renew that, simply an agreement to continue forward with the curriculum latitude that the school has and, reflect on the accountability that Judy had shared. And so you'll determine whether or not you want to do that. There's no cost associated with it. In terms of operations, it's co-located, as I mentioned. One thing I would add as well is I think they've done a really good job over the years of highlighting the progress and the status of the school. I think that's resulted in it has resulted in nearly $1 million of grant money coming in. That has impacted not just Endeavor, but the entire student body under the roof at Watertown High School. Makerspace has been built from purchases that the grant has made available, accessible to all kids. Project Lead the Way biomedical science curriculum has been developed fully. Esports program has been seeded with the support of Endeavor. Community partnerships, technology, a lot of things that really, if you're going to be a charter, one of the benefits and one of the purposes to create a proof of concept that impacts the general population, not just the the entity that exists in the form of a charter, so that's.
And the other thing that, I mean, that you kind of started touching on is the goal of a charter school is to be an innovation zone, to try things out, to do things differently, to get ideas from. And so one of the reasons we have student ambassadors is so that other teachers can come in and learn what we're doing. We've taught probably about 5 or 6 staff members over the past 5 years how to do project-based learning, and they've implemented it in different ways in their own classrooms. So we have the flexibility to be able to do things differently and see and show students and staff the potential of being able to do things differently. I don't know if I'm officially authorized to call on you, but I'm a teacher, so I'm used to calling on people with their hands in the air. So I apologize, Mr. Arnett, I'm not trying to take that.
I guess, can you lay out perhaps a typical structure of a typical student, even though it's personalized and customized, what would a typical day look like for a
Absolutely, that's a great question, because it feels a little fluffy and weird. Most of our students, well, first you should know that students can earn credit through Endeavor Charter School by taking online courses. They can do projects. They can do seminars. Seminars are teacher directed or they can be student directed. We've had students teach seminars with the advising of a teacher kind of supporting them. Or they can take up to 2 credits in the high school with our partnership with the high school. So many of our students, I won't say most, but many of our students take on all of those different opportunities over the course of the school year. In a trimester, right now, if you are a freshman, you first hour are in a seminar called Boot Camp, where we are teaching you how to be successful in Endeavor. Teaching you project-based learning, teaching you time management, teaching you organization, teaching you all the things you're going to need to learn to be able to be successful as an independent learner. So if you were a freshman, you're in boot camp first hour until December for the first trimester. Second hour is Endeavor hour. On Mondays, we do town hall, community building, and goal setting. Tuesdays, we do mentor partnership time where we work on communication skills. Wednesdays, we meet in advisory groups. Thursdays, we do project presentations. And Fridays, we do team challenges and reflections for the week. So that would be second hour. Third hour, then let's say I might take the Project Lead the Right Way class, because that is an Endeavor course. And so you could take Principles of Biomedical Science with Annie Carpenter out in the high school. The fourth hour, maybe I would be in choir or band. And then fifth hour would be my personalized learning hour. So you might have, now I also have a freshman who has boot camp and he has Endeavor hour, and then third hour he works on Alex Math. Fourth hour he's working on personalized learning, where he is doing online grammar and he's working through reading a book project that he is doing. And then fifth hour, he's doing an independent project on the invention of the internet. You also, as a student, would meet with me as your advisor once a week, and we sit down and we go through everything you're working on. And I use Project Foundry. We use Project Foundry to manage all of that because, as you might imagine, I have 18 students in my advisory and they're all doing different things. So the way that we manage all of that is through Project Foundry, and it lists all their projects and the learning targets that they have for each of those projects. So I can coach them through, what are you getting done during today? What are you getting done tomorrow? But they also learn to do that in their own goal setting journals. Does that help you?
Yep.
Okay.
Other board members? So I have one question.
Yes, please.
Which is, well, I wasn't there in year 0 when the charter was drawn up. I have
Yes.
been here in all.
Yes.
years of operation.
Yes. Yes.
And
You're the only one, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
that's the bad thing about being one of the few. Okay, with 9 years,
Yes.
we potentially have students who have gone beginning to end through Endeavor
Yes,
and then gone on to post-secondary experiences of one variety or another. And with 9 years, they could have potentially gone into a college and university for 4 years and gone all the way through. It would be interesting to hear from some Endeavor alumni as to what their experience has been beyond,
Absolutely.
because that is a fundamental premise of this school, is it is intended to be something different, but yet still prepare people the
we,
same way.
last year we had, our biggest graduating class was 13 students. And 7 of them went on to college
Yeah.
and 6 of them went into the workforce.
Right, it should just be interesting to hear from some of them as to what their experiences have been like out there. And I only raise it because it could also be an interesting project
Absolutely.
for
To
one or
do
more
follow-up,
students.
yes, to do follow-up would be great. I will say that it is one anecdotal example, but we do have one graduate, one alumni who is now on our board of governance. So those of you that are not familiar, we are under the umbrella of your governance, but then we are state required to have our own board of governance. And one of our alumni has come back to be part of that board of governance because she believes in what we do. But we have not done a follow-up in a couple of years since before COVID. COVID kind of took over a lot of things,
Sure.
so we haven't followed up on those kinds of things.
Yes, now you've reached the point, you could literally have people who might have gone to college and done a 4-year and graduated.
And graduated from college, right? Right,
And that's the only outcome we're measuring, but
yes,
if you now have enough, you can definitely do that.
right, for sure.
Right, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, if I may, I just want to share, just watching Endeavor and watching the school over the last 9 years, I was around as well. And just to watch it really from inception to become, I mean, arguably one of the strongest schools of its kind in the state. I mean, and for the staff at Endeavor to be presenting at the state level, they have an influence. And I know it's hard to see sometimes, you know, from the day to day, but I mean, it really is, I mean, one of the highest quality programs of its kind in the state. And I think this is a huge celebration. So I'm extremely proud.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr.
and it sounds strange for me to say this, but I guess one of the testaments to that is when I go to things for my own professional development, and I go to this summer, we did a workshop at the CISA in Tomahawk, and I went as a participant, and I ended up kind of leading. Because once people started asking questions, I'm more than happy to share what we're doing and the successes that we're having. So I think we have, in some ways, helped put Watertown on the map a little bit in that we have this cool, innovative thing going on here. So I wanted to make sure that you knew about it, and I want you to feel welcome to, like I said, email me. We can set up a time if you'd like to come and visit and talk to students. I would have brought students with me, but it's kind of their time right now. So they're a little reluctant to give up their time.
That's right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is preliminary budget discussion. Mr. Williamson.
So we went over quite a bit of this detail with the Finance Committee on Wednesday night, both the tax levy in great detail and the budget in less detail. There's still a lot of new parts going on, but those are starting to come to an entire scope, and I even have some updates on some of the assumptions that we're making for this year's budget. If tell you to go to the second slide right away. But I typically, just for everyone who isn't aware, so right now we're in the part where of the budget where really I double check now a lot of personnel costs of who we've hired and their benefit choices and things like that. Making sure that large projects that may be on the horizon, if they can fit into the budget, they can get moved into that and start moving towards a conceptual phase. And really, the purpose of the finance committee on Wednesday night was to focus in on a tax strategy, because before we meet again, the budget gets published in the newspaper as a, to alert everyone of the budget hearing that will occur at the end of October. So we discussed that strategy so that we're on the same page about at least what's going to be put out there from a publication standpoint. And then on the 21st, or that looks like in October, that Wednesday for the board meeting, we'll finalize expenditures and revenues with the finance committee. We'll finalize the tax levy itself and bring that forward then on that Monday, what is it, the 24th, as a recommendation for the full board. I'll do the little, dog and pony show with the budget presentation and things like that. But you'll take a look and finalize that budget and move that forward, and away we go. 4 months in the year. So just from a comparison standpoint, the actuals you see up there, and then you can see the assumptions that I'm making. Some of them are, quite frankly, just for ease of understanding the differences between 21 and 22 and 22 and 23. But from the most important things up there right now is, right now for the budget, we're assuming a decrease in our enrollment, at least in our residency, of about 56 students. We do know that our head count is down about 53 students. How that's going to shake out with resident versus non-resident and all those things, we're still kind of going through that. But we are down in head count to about 3,300 kids total. And you see the FTE always comes out large. We'll talk about why that is if you want. One of the interesting parts of this year's, at least the effect that it can have on the mill rate, is the property valuation increase. We know that what the state does, we look at market values when we start looking at mill rates, and mill rate being the dollar amount that is taxed for $1,000 of property value. So when we look at mill rates and how that's going to play out amongst our district, we look at market and equalized values. Same thing, market and equalized. That then gets spread out over assessed values. Okay, but what we are able to see and report on is the equalized value. So a pretty significant increase in market value, up 17%, and that will play with the mill rate, as we'll get to in a second. We put a pretty big emphasis on the transfer of service this year. That's a line item that allows us to levy dollars for students who have moved into our district and receive additional educational needs. And so Jenny has spent a lot of time, a lot of fun time putting together what this dollar amount looks like and the amount of students who we need to account for in that line item. And that gets baked into the revenue limit formula forever. So it's a line that we want to take advantage of when it's allowable to us. We know that our referendum is going into its final year at the 3.9 million. Next year, that of course will say 3.9 and 0 for the final amount. Let's see, I do want to then just highlight briefly the private school voucher. It's a pretty significant increase again. I think we've seen a fairly large increase in the special needs scholarship portion of that, where another private school has jumped into that program, and I think nearly doubling the amount of students that were in that. And so that does increase the property tax line item there. So we're putting in a little over 300,000, and it's always a nice surprise when we finally get that finalized by the state on the 15th, what the number actually is. At this point, I've increased the regular private school voucher up 5%, and then I've nearly doubled the special needs scholarship amount. So I hope that's a conservative enough number, but that'll get finalized in October, and we'll see that play out. So how this all shakes out is what we really talked about Wednesday night with finance, is how to balance what we can do for taxpayers what we can do for the district in order to set it up for the future, in flexibility. And striking that balance was important for the committee last Wednesday. And really what ends up happening here is that our revenue limit, you'll notice, is larger. So after the green lines, you'll notice that the revenue limit that we are taxing is larger. The awesome part is you want to look at the second green line, the operational property tax levy, combined with the building referendum debt. That number is about the same, but the amount of state aid help that we're getting, which is up, what is that, 1.6 million, that is what is offsetting more than the increase, right? So you can get a $750,000 increase in the overall revenue limit. However, we're getting an additional 1.6 million in help, which means the property taxes, the overall amount that we're going to levy that the property taxpayers are going to be responsible for is going to be less.
Why are we getting that?
That's because of the biennium budget at the state level, adding more to property tax relief, as well as our expenditures being at about budget or a little higher than they have been in the previous years. So we're a district that kind of counterintuitive. The more we spend, the more state aid we get. And so really those two aspects are what is playing into it, but predominantly it's the biennial budget at the state level. So you're going to see that the majority of our, I would say overwhelming majority of our residents will see a property tax decrease and a mill rate that is going from 890 down to 731 as of right now. There's still things that need to play out. I would add this, and then anyone from finance can weigh in. We're very conscious of how property value increases are happening across each of the 11 municipalities, city, town, and otherwise, and are really trying to do our best strategy in order to bring a tax equal, if not less, tax to as many residents as possible going into 22-23. Anyone want to add anything to that?
The main thing I want to add is to that point. So there's one big factor that's out of our control in there. So we can set the overall levy with that intent of trying to be at or lower, but it comes down to a block by block, house by house basis, and whatever the assessment that the city determined is. So if you have two houses right next to each other and one of them went up this much and the other one only went up this much, half as much as the other one, when they go to spread out the tax bill, this person's going to end up paying more. We can't control that. We can't control how it got played out. We're trying to do our best to put out a levy that should be for most taxpayers at or below what they're paying right now. We can't guarantee that's the way it's going to play out for everybody, because we can only go at the average. And an average exists because there are people above it and there are people below it. So.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And the levy that we chose was looking at 11 municipalities.
Right.
And the increase that at this moment that we know is the increase in property values. And we took the highest one of those and set the levy at that. So that municipality as a whole should see a zero increase, and all the other ones as a municipality as a whole should see less. Correct? On average.
Yeah, again,
On average.
So I said city.
When you and I are there, if your house went up and mine only went up a little bit, you're gonna pay it, I'm not.
Yeah, I said city should back off and say, whoever does the assessments for your property, whether it be city or town, because as mentioned, there are a number of taxing districts, and the differences in valuation increase in those was widespread. So again, we're trying our best to do the right thing for everyone, students and taxpayers, and just aim at what we know and what we can control.
Yeah, and just a reminder, we can only control the school portion of the tax.
Right.
Correct. All right. So, obviously it'll be, October is my Christmas. And so we'll get these variables in and we'll all be finalized in October. This is just a reminder. I show this often just so we understand it's counterintuitive right now. Watertown, sorry, Tyler, could you on the next slide? I did not on my computer. For those who haven't heard this before, right now Watertown is in a situation where as membership begins to rise, which we're not there yet, but as membership rises again, whenever it hits that floor, revenue will actually fall for quite a while, for a couple of years at least, okay? Which means taxes will go down as well. That's the situation Watertown is in until that stabilizes and we kind of get off this, they call it exemptions, but we get off this drip of getting dollars while we are losing students. But when that finalizes, it'll be a different situation. So usually when we talk about, whether it's a fiscal cliff or whatever that looks like, really it's when membership will start to rise and you start to need those dollars to take on additional students. That's when we're going to be at probably our lowest revenue point before that rebuild happens. So that's just your friendly reminder. Tyler, next slide. I think okay. So we did get, these are the assumptions I have in on the base expenditures. I do want to say while I budgeted flat open enrollment in and out just because of the ease of doing that, our open enrollment out from a student count is down 13 students. So I don't know how that shakes out for K through 12, but open enrollment out is lower and open enrollment in is higher. Went from 71 FTE last year, and right now we're around 94 FTE. So a drop in open enrollment out and an increase in open enrollment in. How that will play out with residency. So usually when you have a lot of all those open enrollment out students still count as our residents. So you have to kind of, see how this will shake out as far as how it plays on the FTE. But overall, that funding gap, that closes up significantly because of this. So that's about a $300,000 swing that I did not account for in the current budget, and part of why we lay out these variables throughout October. So the current budget, if you looked at it, had a surplus right now of about 280,000. That's really for me to play with to make sure that enrollments come in where I think they're going to be, double checking, salaries and benefits, just giving us some leeway as variables come in. But this is an additional swing that we had not accounted for yet. So that's some good news. It's hot off the press. Finally, there is no finally. The budget document itself is what gets published. That's literally the published document. We'll fine tune it again, like I said, on expenditures and revenues, but the taxing strategy is going to be what we said tonight until we get all the exact details in for late October. I'd say all in all, pretty positive news. Any other questions, comments?
Board members, comments or questions?
You might, because we didn't talk about it at fiscal, the private school voucher is going up, but correct? The state has capped that and continues to increase that cap.
Correct.
That is not necessarily a reflection that more students in our area are choosing private school over public school. It is just how the state is handling
Yeah,
continuing to
so,
open up that funding.
yeah, what happens is, as a reminder, I think I forget if we're in year 6 or 7, but it's basically they open up an additional 1% of your student body can be a part of the voucher program. So if you hit that limit, there's no more students that can be from Watertown in that. So it could just be that now this year, those students maybe who hadn't qualified because of this cap now do qualify, and so the number becomes larger, or it could be more students actually going into the program. It could be, we're not really privy to that, but you're right, it's capped. And right now, the law is it's up 1% each year until 10%. And after the 10% mark, it full blown, there's no more caps. So there's about 3 or 4 more years of caps in existence under current law.
Also on that note, there has been a waiting list for Wisconsin Parental Choice Program every year in this district. So,
Well, and we are not unique. We have a higher concentration of private school membership than the vast majority of districts.
I haven't seen anything like it.
So,
It's hot.
so the important point that Dave made is that does not necessarily reflect an increase in their enrollment. It reflects an increase in the number that they have enrolled that are taking advantage of the voucher program.
Yes. That's it.
Okay, and because actually, if you look at the numbers, in a number of those schools, they still are seeing declines just as much as we are because they're working off the same base population. All those numbers are accessible online.
The finances are real. It is, the finances do not equal student numbers. It's important.
Any other comments or questions on that? None? All right, thank you very much. This brings us to our reports, and we will start with the superintendent report.
Okay, I go over here so I can see the screen. Pat, thank you. And so you can just go to the slide right away. There we go. You can see that I'm pictured there with Steve Board. That was a Watertown TV spotlight that the chamber did. And it was a really good time to sit down. He interviewed me not only about, kind of where I came from, everything, but some of the things that we're doing as a school district. So if you have a chance, please watch. Give me some feedback too. I always like to hear feedback from the movie critics out there about what happened. So I would really appreciate it. And then I do want you to know that if you look at my calendar over the last month, it's been meet and greet, meet and greet, meet and greet, meet and greet, which has been fabulous. Because the more I get to know the people in the community, as well as our staff and others who are just saying, hey, you're new, I'd like to say hi to you. The better I get an idea for what our schools are to people in our district. And for that, I can't thank these people enough. And so I've met with this list of people up there. Some of them I'm on a second or third scheduled meeting for. You can see that Mayor Emily McFarland's up there another time. Soon we're going to be meeting to discuss all the TIDs in the area and or what their thoughts are for possible TIDs in the future. So we can have some discussion about that as a board. You can see that former board member, Mark Putra. I met him just by chance as I was working at the high school, putting together, what's the name? Thank you, Feeding America boxes. And, just got to meet him and said, hey, I'd like to, talk to you a little bit about history and where the district has been from your standpoint as a former board member. Rotary was today. I'm actually speaking to Rotary next week about the school district and many others. Retired Teachers Association from Jefferson County isn't up there, but I got a chance to talk with them. My main message was, if you want to enter retirement, we will gladly rehire you. And so, a lot of that was there. And we were talking about, just good things about students. It was funny, one of the things that was said was, that children are so different now. And I said, it's funny because I was just at a conference and they didn't say, children are so different now. They said childhood is so different now. And I said, that really reframed it in my mind. These are the same, kids are kids and have been, but they're growing up in a whole different childhood than many of us grew up in. And that does have impacts. And it's really making me think about that too. So anyway, there's a list of people that I've met there. This town has come with a lot of opportunities, and I thank the board for allowing me to take a chance in one of them. I'm part of the Leadership Watertown class of 22-23, and these pictures that you see here are with a group of people that I was paired with on our first day. Our first day was full of great activities to help. I think it was designed to help get us around town and meet people. So you can see that how it was designed was for us to, this picture down here in the middle was Keck's Furniture. We went there instead of Kusel Equipment, but we were to try to find somebody in the chamber who's been in business over 100 years. And Keck's it was closer than running up to Kusel. I know you guys had some people go out there, but it was great because you got to see some businesses that have been longstanding businesses in the community. We also took a picture up here. This was a picture of us at our afternoon activity. Our afternoon activity was a team building exercise where we went to a local bed and breakfast here in town, and basically they did a safe house mystery for us, and there were clues around the safe room. We had to work together to try to solve the clues and see who the murderer was, and the murderer could have been one of us. It wasn't me. I was Piper Plum, and I was just mainly a very big antagonist who ran a social media company and was just putting out the news as the facts. Okay, and so that was my identity. You can see that we met Mayor McFarland. That was part of the civic obligation of that day, and some of the other things. Down here in the lower right is us talking with people over at 7-Up. They were actually having some kind of a celebration that they do on Tuesdays with their company. And so they had a cookout, so we got to meet them across the street. And then at the Sharp Corner, we had bonus points if we could identify the two newest parks in the Watertown Park system. And Sharp Corner is one of them. Can anybody guess the other?
Heron Landing?
Nope. But I can't think of the name, but it is well towards the airport, kind of near Webster and Shears neighborhood, kind of between the two. What's the name of that park?
Off Revere Way.
West Haven.
West Haven, that's
West
right,
Haven.
yeah, West Haven, yeah. Very beautiful park, great playground equipment. Thank you again for the opportunity, because as a new leader to the school district, anybody goes through this program, they're going to learn a lot about our town. And so I know there have been other members of our admin team, Ms. Brady, Mr. Kerr, they've participated, Marquettes. Who else? Yeah, raise your hand if you have. Yeah, see, there's a number of us who've done this, different activities each year, but I'm going to really enjoy this and getting to know people. Hey, thank you. Next, some celebrations. We had homecoming, and so here's some pictures from homecoming at King and Queen there. Our distinguished alumni, Dr. Rim, also was there, presented and had a luncheon prepared for by the students. Booster Club did their tailgate, and then of course the dress up days and the spirit that go along with it. Also another celebration, I keep sharing activities with Avid, and they really had a needs program. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, Jason, but on the 20th, Tuesday, they had RMS Avid with their families, and they participated in a signing ceremony that formally introduced them to Avid and Avid classes, and I think it was very well attended. And then another celebration, you know that we're putting a lot of time, effort, and energy into professional learning communities and using that as a way to help us stay on track towards our goal for strategic planning. And the reason I have this little graphic up here, this is a graphic, growing up to and through the crown is really from Kevin Williams, who he is a good speaker on PLC movement. But what it does is it shows that, if we have essential learning incomes that are high, we set the bar high, what we can do is we can grow them to and through the crown. And that is the aspect that Lincoln is taking right now at their center school. The other schools are all doing different things through PLC, but we're all working towards the same thing. Whether it's a book study or reaffirming, their agenda setting or different places that they are, they're all working towards that. And so this is something that is uniting us as a school district. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I sent out a good thank you to each of the buildings, thanking them for their work and continuing their efforts in PLC and recognizing each of them and each of their buildings for what they're doing specifically in that building to move towards that as a district to get to our goals. And I just, part of my email message was also to send them out, again, our mission and value statement, our priorities as a district, and where they can get to and look at our strategic plan again. So really trying to focus staff towards our goals. Then another celebration is eCampus International. Some of you who were at one of our meetings earlier, whether it was planning or our ed services, you might have heard just us talking about a buzz. We have 26 enrollments and growing from international. And most of those students are high schoolers pursuing an American diploma. We've got them from all over the place. And I wouldn't be able to name them all, but Portugal, I know is one of them. Where else, Dave? A number of different countries.
Yeah, schools in Portugal, Ukraine, Poland, they have hubs throughout Europe, so kids that are living in different nations throughout Europe are enrolled in eCampus.
No.
Yeah.
I know that, we're not necessarily quite hitting our numbers, but we are getting better at defining them and still trying to keep putting that out there as one of our gold measures. Important reminders, you may have seen these things, kind of things come to you as a board member in the mail. Please try not to throw them out, okay? Because they do maybe look like a flyer or a junk mail, but they do have really good information on them for you. And I'm not here to suggest that I'm trying to sell WASB. You've already decided to be a member, right? I'm saying let's get the most out of it that we can because we are members. And so there's a reminder for the fall regional meeting workshop. That's on the 12th there. Region 12, but it's coming up this Thursday in Middleton Cross Plains. I know I'm going and at least one other. If you want to go, you still can, and we can still register you. Also, there's a Connecting with Lawmakers that came recently to you. This is on November 10th through the 16th, and locations vary. But if you're interested in that and you would like to connect with some of the legal people about meetings and other questions about how school boards run and other things that you have that you might think are a hot topic item, they'll be there for you. And then lastly, I know it's ceremonial because you guys are members, and I know it's kind of gimmicky, but every year you get one of these. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but it's your membership certificate to WASB. So congratulations for being a member, and please take as much advantage as you can from it. That's all I have. Any questions?
Comments and questions, Superintendent? No? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to committee reports. And again, just remind those presenting, the full content of your report is attached, so you don't necessarily have to go through it blow by blow. So fiscal management?
Oh, don't worry, all of us were there. Tony, myself, and Bill Surdick as well. We started with the payment report. Not a lot of questions. We wanted to touch base on the variance report. It was not in there due to just the lack of information. We'll bring it back next month. We didn't have any purchases over 20 grand. We did talk about vehicles, and we're gonna follow up the committee on more information on maybe starting to have some vans and maybe transit vans on site. More information is needed on that. We spent a lot of time then on construction manager bids, which you're gonna see tonight as an action item. The committee talked through that in great detail, so be confident that we went through the proper process. And then finally, you've heard already about the budget and levy update, not anything really additional to add there. An important meeting occurring on the 19th then of October, and that's it.
Comments or questions on the report? Thank you. HR?
We had our meeting on September 19th. We opened at 5 o'clock with negotiations. We exchanged proposals with the clerical support staff. We entered into closed session and reconvened to open session at 5:04. And then entered into negotiations again at 5:30 p.m. with the United Lakewood educators and went into closed sessions and then reconvened to open session at 5:47 with tentative agreements that are as resolutions tonight. Also, we reviewed the consent agenda for staff appointments, resignations, which we have an item for tonight. And then we did an education piece and some discussion regarding committee agenda planning to kind of, as far as like what comes up in a typical calendar year. And so we had some discussion around that. Margaret was very helpful in providing us guidance as far as the different things that we see there. And our next meeting is October 17th.
Thank you. Questions or comments on that report? Hearing none, we'll move on to Ed Services.
Yes, Ed Services met with all members present. We, for the most part, stuck to our agenda, which was to discuss the ESSER dollars, especially those near term. And that had to do with the gifted and talented program and a consultant for that. You'll see the summary of that nicely written up in the minutes. Community tutoring, looking at ways to enhance community tutoring, and the one asterisk on that, we did ask the question and it was answered for those who were familiar with TutorMe, which we piloted last spring into the summer. That pilot is over and we're not renewing, for anybody who remembers that discussion and what went into it. And then lastly was the strategic plan, and we just had the opportunity to look at some past longitudinal data as the 2022 information wasn't yet available, but we expect that to be added. And similar to Tina's sentiments regarding agenda planning, we're still working through that ourselves on ESC and making sure that it ties in properly with what's going on at planning and the other committees. So otherwise, relatively succinct, and we did take till 9:02 until Jared came in and gave me the hook. So that was it.
Comments or questions on that report? Hearing none, I will go ahead and cover planning committee on behalf of the chairperson, who's not here. So that committee met on September 14th with all committee members present, that being Doug, Tina, Craig, and Lori. In addition, Diana was there, as well as the superintendent. And the first item up was to talk about possibly engaging an organization called the Donovan Group to assist with school communications. This is in response to our own strategic plan and its identified goal around communication and marketing as well as things that we simply all gathered as we went through, in particular, the superintendent process, that interview and selection process. What we learned from what other people were doing in other districts, very informative. And at the conclusion of that discussion, the committee recommended that Dr. Burke discuss how to finance their proposal, and we'll assume that the committee will hear something forthcoming.
Yep, I talked with Mike, and we decided to make sure that in following board policy, we try to get a couple of other plans from other communication strategist groups. I do have a lead on a couple that I got from our fall superintendent meeting. So I'll be looking to them to send in a proposal, and then we can look at the positives and negatives of those. I brought the Donovan group just because that was the one I knew. So,
okay, thank you. Next item was to review the results of the latest survey conducted by the Studer Group. And again, that was included in the committee materials, and you can review it there. And that is both, that encompasses staff, parents, and students. So there is some interesting information there. I encourage you to consult that summary rather than going through it here in the meeting. And then lastly, under the topic of an update on strategic plan, Dr. Burke presented information about eCampus charter enrollment, part of which was discussed this evening in terms of the international component. And that was the main thrust of that.
I just want to make the sub note that those were very, very preliminary rough numbers. The numbers are increasing and getting better, and Dr. Vitale and I are working to sort those out from a recommendation from planning to take a look at how many are, new enrollments to the district, how many were former Watertown students who decided to go to our eCampus, how many are international, and so on. And we're going to try to do our best to sort those out so you have a better picture of not just total enrollment, but where those enrollments are coming from.
Committee members, is there anything you want to highlight?
Just one thing on policy, if I might add. Policy didn't meet this month. However, there is a meeting in October. We already have a backlog, and I say a backlog. We have a list of policies to review. If anybody here has any that you'd like to get added, we'll put them on the list. I can't say we're going to get to them in October, but I'd like to have a running total. So if there's ones that you want to add, please send me an email so that we're aware of them.
Any other committee members present want to add anything to what I said about planning?
Oh, sorry.
No? Okay. Any comments or questions on that report? All right. Thank you. Then we will move on to the consent agenda, which is resolution 9154. Do I hear a motion on 9154?
Second.
Moved by Tina and seconded by Lori. So the consent agenda includes our meeting minutes, committee summaries, personnel staffing, that is both hiring and retirements and resignation, the approval of bills, and first and second readings of policies. There are no first readings of policies, but there are second readings of policies. And you'll see the 6 that are listed there. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins.
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
Dave Smith.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is our resolutions for this evening, starting with resolution 9155, which is an agreement with the Hustisford School District. Do I hear a motion on 9155?
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Craig. Comments or questions on the motion? This is a cooperative staffing agreement whereby we lend a little bit of time from one of our staff members to them. Specialized services. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins.
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
Dave Smith.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9156. And this is our collective bargaining agreement for the 2022-2023 school year with our certified staff. Comments, oh, sorry, do I have a motion, please? Moved by Mike, seconded by Diana.
Lori,
Oh, which one?
Lori second.
All right. I heard
I'm
one.
gonna stay quiet today.
Okay, you just gave ground on that, right? So I'm sure I heard you. Sometimes you get right with me. Don't think I don't know that. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins.
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
Dave Smith.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Abstain.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9157, which is our collective bargaining agreement with our clerical staff for the 2022-2023 school year. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Craig, seconded by Mike. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins.
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
Dave Smith.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9158, which is our CPI adjustment for non-represented staff listed in the resolution. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Lori. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins.
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
David Smith.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is resolution 9159, which is an agreement with TDS Telecom to allow them to place 2 cabinets on 2 of our facilities to enable laying of a fiber build out throughout the city. Do I hear a motion on 9159?
Second.
Moved by Tina, second by Craig. So again, this is just allowing them to locate basically 2 gray boxes on the corners of a couple of our properties. We have the most convenient location. They'll properly landscape them. You won't notice it, but it's gonna allow for the delivery of service to the city that's not here right now. And we are getting paid a fee for it.
I just wanted to double check to make sure that, I mean, because the Douglas one happened to have a couple of locations indicated.
Yep.
Was that, discussed with building, ground building maintenance and ground, I forget. Grounds and maintenance.
Yes, Bill and I have talked, and really it's gonna come down to a little bit where they need to access from what side better. But they gave us both locations because they just didn't want anybody to be surprised. It will be one of the 2 locations. We just don't know which one yet.
Sure.
Yeah, essentially this takes the form of you granting utility easement.
Yeah.
Doing in this instance.
So the resolution just says approved placement of cabinets. Is there an
The
agreement that
easements.
is there an agreement that we're agreeing to?
There is no posted agreement right now. We will, if you agree, that's essentially giving us the time to work through making sure we write up the proper easement, with our attorney and make sure it's all ready to go. And we will present it to them. But the company needs to know, are you intending to do this? If not, they have to try to move forward and look for other placements. Essentially, when you say yes, that means, yes, we're agreeing to it. But the final agreement will come when the signing of the contract happens.
But the contract amount is below what is required for board authorization. So I still thought it was important to have the board weigh in on the topic.
So should it be rewritten of allowing the administration to enter that contract?
I think it's approving the conceptual easement, and allowing the administration to execute, which is already covered by our policy. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins,
Yes.
Lori Holland,
Yes.
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
Dave Smith,
Yes.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is Resolution 9160, which is approving the selection of a construction manager for several AC projects. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mike. Do I hear a second? Second by Lori. Comments or questions on the motion? Again, I would refer you to the fiscal management meeting materials, which you could see all the various proposals that we received. This one happens to qualify as lowest and best. It's nice when those two things actually coincide, right?
It's just that there is no dollar outlay that'll come with an additional board approval
That's correct.
in the future. This has no upfront action, which is what saying. Selecting them
That is
to
correct.
do pro bono work for us to get
Yeah,
this.
they're bidding out everything, yes.
Yeah, so the next course of action, this is not, money will not come to this project until we get to the bidding stage. Okay, any other comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins,
Yes.
Lori Holland,
Yes.
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
Dave Smith,
Yes.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. This brings us to the second part of our agenda for public comment. If there's anyone in attendance who'd like to be recognized this time, in person? Nope. Anyone online? All right, then I will entertain a motion to go into closed session for the reasons stated in the agenda. Do I hear that motion?
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Tina. Comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins,
Yes.
Lori Holland, Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
Dave Smith,
Yes.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. We are in closed session.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Like she was, she's at home. Or you want to?
Recommendation was not the top line and not the bottom line. That was, but the recommendation was budget in place before position.
All right. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mike Higgins,
Yes.
Lori Holland,
Yes.
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
Dave Smith,
Yes.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes, and the motion carries. And lastly, I was remiss, I skipped over agenda planning, which I added in. So, so the purpose is, are there things, is to get here on a regular basis to see if there's things that you want raised for a future meeting. Doesn't necessarily mean the next meeting, but a future meeting. If there are topics, like for the board, full board discussion. Anybody have anything for this evening? Again, we'll do this every time now. Okay. All right, hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Craig, seconded by Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you share with Margaret?
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.